The beginning of the dream. Johnny was the type of man who believed in hard work and perseverance. He'd grown up in a small, tight-knit town where everyone knew each other's business. Owning his restaurant was his pride and joy, and it had become a popular spot among locals. The clinking of utensils, the laughter of families, and the smell of burgers grilling were the sounds of his success. He was content, but he had never expected life to surprise him in such a profound way. One autumn afternoon, while wiping down tables, Johnny noticed a young woman who had just stepped in. She was slender and graceful, with deep brown skin and expressive eyes that seemed to see everything around her with a mix of curiosity and caution. Her coat was worn, and her shoes were scuffed, but she held herself with the poise of someone who carried a quiet strength. Johnny couldn't take his eyes off her. There was something about her that spoke of resilience and determination, qualities he recognized immediately. As she made her way to the counter, Johnny felt a strange excitement build up inside him. He greeted her with a smile. "Welcome to Johnny's Diner. What can I get for you?" "A coffee, please." "Black," she replied with a soft smile. Her voice was gentle but clear, and he noticed a slight nervousness as she glanced around the diner. Johnny poured her coffee, his curiosity getting the better of him. "New in town?" "Yes, just arrived yesterday," she replied, taking a careful sip of her drink. "I'm Ashley. I'm here to try to make it as a model." Johnny raised his eyebrows in surprise, impressed by her ambition. He had heard about people coming to town with big dreams, but few of them had her quiet determination. A model, huh? That's a big dream. Ashley's face lit up, and for a moment, he could see the passion burning in her eyes. "It is," she said, her voice growing firmer. "But I'm willing to work hard, no matter how long it takes." There was something so genuine in her that Johnny felt compelled to encourage her. "You know, most people wouldn't even have the guts to try. I think that's something pretty special." Over the next few weeks, Johnny found himself looking forward to Ashley's visits. She would stop by after long days of auditions and rejections, her shoulders often slumped but her spirit unbroken. He'd invite her to stay a bit longer after closing, serving her a simple meal, and the two would talk about life, dreams, and struggles. Johnny admired her resilience, and the more he got to know her, the more he found himself captivated by her. One evening, as they sat in the quiet diner, Ashley opened up about her past. Raised in a struggling neighborhood, she had been the only child of a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Despite the challenges, Ashley had dreamed of becoming a model since she was a child. She told Johnny about how, as a little girl, she would flip through magazines, wishing she could one day see someone who looked like her on those glossy pages. She wanted to be that representation, to show that beauty could come in all shades. Johnny listened, captivated by her passion and sincerity. He could see how much this dream meant to her, and he found himself feeling more protective of her with every passing day. He knew what it was like to work hard for something you loved, and he wanted nothing more than to see Ashley succeed. But not everyone was supportive. As Johnny and Ashley grew closer, the town began to take notice. Whispers started to circulate about Johnny and the girl chasing foolish dreams. People questioned what a respected restaurant owner could possibly see in someone who was just passing through. It didn't help that she was different in her ambitions, her background, and her appearance. One evening, while Johnny was closing up, his friend Mike stopped by, leaning against the counter with a look of concern. "Johnny," he began, his voice low, "I've been hearing things. People are talking about that girl you've been spending time with." Johnny felt his muscles tense, but managed to keep his voice steady. "What about her?" Mike hesitated, his gaze fixed on the countertop. "I mean, you know she's never going to make it as a model, right? She's not from our world, and her dreams are, well, pretty unrealistic. I'm just looking out for you, man." The words stung, and Johnny felt a surge of anger rise in him. He took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Thanks, Mike," he replied, his tone steely. "But I think you're wrong. Ashley's got more heart and determination than anyone I've ever met." But Mike's words echoed a sentiment that seemed to spread through the town. People whispered behind their hands, saying things like, "She's not even that pretty," or "Who does she think she is?" Each comment felt like a knife in Johnny's heart. He had come to care deeply for Ashley, and he couldn't understand why people couldn't see the beauty and strength he saw in her. Despite the gossip, Johnny continued to spend time with Ashley, encouraging her in every way he could. But he could see that the harsh words were starting to take their toll on her. One evening, as they walked along the quiet streets, she sighed heavily and looked up at him with sadness in her eyes. "Johnny," she whispered, "you've been so kind to me, but sometimes I feel like I don't belong in your world. You have this amazing restaurant, this whole life that people respect, and here I am, chasing a dream that might never come true." Johnny stopped and turned to face her, his hands gently cupping her shoulders. "Ashley, your dreams are what make you special. Don't ever think you're not good enough. You belong anywhere you want to be. I believe in you." Her eyes filled with tears, but she managed a small smile. "Thank you, Johnny. I don't know what I'd do without you." Johnny's heart swelled with affection and pride. He wanted her to see herself the way he saw her, strong, beautiful, and full of potential. As he held her close, he made a silent promise to himself. He would be her rock, her biggest supporter, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And so, their relationship grew, and with it, the town's whispers became louder. For Johnny, however, there was no turning back. He had found someone extraordinary, someone worth standing up for, no matter the cost. And as he held Ashley's hand, he felt certain that together, they could weather any storm. Facing the storm. As Johnny and Ashley's relationship blossomed, so did the storm of opinion swirling around them. The small town seemed to magnify every detail of their lives, and while some congratulated Johnny on finding love, others couldn't seem to understand his connection with Ashley. Whispers and glances followed them wherever they went, and it felt as though the entire town was holding its breath, waiting for their relationship to unravel. Johnny tried to ignore it, to focus on Ashley and the warmth that had blossomed between them. But soon, the scrutiny became impossible to ignore. One afternoon, while Johnny was prepping ingredients for the dinner rush, his friend Mike, a man he'd known since high school, leaned against the counter and watched Johnny in silence. After a few minutes, Mike cleared his throat, his face a mixture of concern and discomfort. "Johnny," he began slowly, "I wanted to talk to you about Ashley." Johnny paused, setting down his knife and giving Mike a hard look. "Go on." Mike shifted uneasily, not meeting Johnny's eyes. "It's just that you've worked so hard to build this restaurant, and people around here respect you. But with Ashley, Johnny, she's a dreamer. You can't seriously believe she'll make it as a model, can you? People talk, you know." Johnny's hands clenched at his sides. He took a deep breath, trying to keep his anger in check. "Mike, Ashley's one of the hardest working people I know. And yes, I do believe she can make it. Just because she's chasing something different doesn't mean it's impossible." Mike raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Hey, I'm just looking out for you, man. I don't want to see you throw everything away for someone who might just leave town in a few months. You're respected here. Think about that." Johnny felt a pang of hurt and disappointment but stayed silent. He knew Mike's words reflected the sentiment of many in the town, but it still stung. Johnny had always been respected here, and now he felt like every move he made was under scrutiny, just because he was with Ashley. But Mike wasn't the only one. At a family dinner later that week, Johnny found himself under similar scrutiny. His parents had invited him over, along with his sister and her husband. They were gathered around the dining table, enjoying one of his mother's famous casseroles, when the conversation inevitably turned to Ashley. Johnny's mother, a woman with kind eyes but a deeply ingrained sense of tradition, looked at him with a worried expression. "Johnny," she began, dabbing her mouth with a napkin, "I wanted to talk to you about this girl you've been seeing." Ashley, right? Johnny nodded, already bracing himself. Yes, that's right, Mom. His mother looked down at her plate for a moment before continuing. I know she's a lovely girl, and I'm sure she's very nice, but this modeling dream of hers, Johnny, it's not a real job. And well, she's not exactly from our world, is she? Johnny felt his heart drop. What do you mean by our world, Mom? His mother hesitated, her face softening. It's just that we've always expected you to settle down with someone who has similar values, a similar upbringing, a woman who can support you here, in this community. Ashley's dreams, they're so big. I just don't want you to get hurt. Johnny's father, usually a quiet man, chimed in. Your mother's right, son. You've built something good here, and you're respected. This girl, she doesn't exactly fit in with our family, and people are talking. We just don't want to see you make a decision you'll regret. Johnny clenched his jaw, feeling a surge of protectiveness toward Ashley. Ashley's dreams are part of what I love about her. She's determined, and she believes in herself, even when no one else does. I admire that. His sister, who had been listening in silence, finally spoke up, her voice soft but unwavering. Johnny, maybe it's not about what everyone else thinks. Maybe it's just about what makes you happy. Johnny glanced at her gratefully. At least someone understood. But as the evening wore on, he found himself having to defend his relationship, each argument draining him a little more. He could see that his family's concerns came from a place of love, but it was clear they didn't understand Ashley's world, her dreams, or her drive. The next day, as Johnny walked through town, he could feel the weight of the townspeople's stares. He tried to hold his head high, but their disapproving looks and whispers echoed in his mind. What does he see in her? They murmured. She's not even that pretty, someone whispered as he passed. When he reached the diner, Marge, his longtime waitress and friend, gave him a sympathetic smile. Tough day? She asked, her tone gentle. Johnny sighed, running a hand through his hair. You could say that. Seems like everyone's got an opinion on my life lately. Marge patted his shoulder. People don't like what they don't understand, Johnny. But if she makes you happy, that's all that matters. Her words brought him a measure of comfort, but as he continued working, he couldn't shake the unease that had settled over him. The town's judgment was weighing on him, and he hated that Ashley was at the center of it. That evening, Johnny met up with Ashley at their favorite park bench, where they often sat and talked under the stars. He could tell by the look in her eyes that she'd had a rough day too. Without a word, he reached for her hand, and she squeezed it, grateful for his silent support. After a moment, Ashley spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Johnny, sometimes I wonder if this is all worth it. I feel like I'm chasing a dream that no one believes in but me. And now, with everyone judging us, I feel like I'm dragging you down. Johnny felt a pang in his chest. He turned to her, his gaze intense. Ashley, don't ever say that. You're not dragging me down. You're the best thing that's happened to me. I believe in you, even if no one else does. Tears filled Ashley's eyes, and she leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. It's hard, you know. Everywhere I go, I feel like people are waiting for me to fail. It's like they want me to give up. Johnny's heart ached for her. He had seen the judgmental looks, heard the whispers, and knew how cruel people could be. But he also knew how strong Ashley was. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. Ashley, listen to me. You are one of the strongest people I know. You have a fire in you that no one can put out, and I'm going to be here with you, every step of the way. As they sat together, the quiet of the night settling around them, Johnny realized just how deep his love for Ashley had grown. He admired her courage, her strength, and her determination. He wanted to be the one who stood beside her, the one who believed in her when no one else did. But he knew that their path would not be easy. The town's disapproval was only one of the obstacles they would face, and he worried about how long they could withstand the pressure. The next morning, Johnny walked into the diner to find a group of customers already seated, their faces set in judgmental expressions. One of them, a woman who had been a regular for years, leaned over to whisper to her friend, her eyes flicking toward Johnny. "I heard he's seeing that model girl," she murmured, her tone dripping with disdain. "Can you believe it? He's wasting his life on a pipe dream." Johnny clenched his jaw, feeling his anger rise. But instead of responding, he kept his focus on his work, refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. That night, as he walked home, Johnny felt the weight of the town's judgment pressing down on him. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crept into his mind. Was he making the right choice? Was he putting everything he had worked for at risk? But when he reached his apartment and saw Ashley waiting for him, her eyes lighting up at the sight of him, all his doubts melted away. She was worth it. She was worth every whisper, every judgmental look, and every sacrifice. In that moment, Johnny made a silent promise to himself. No matter what anyone else thought, he would stand by Ashley's side. He would be her biggest supporter, her rock, and her champion. Because he knew, deep down, that their love was strong enough to withstand anything. As they sat together that evening, talking about their dreams and fears, Johnny knew that this was only the beginning of their journey. They had a long road ahead, but he was ready to face it with her. And no matter what the town thought, he was determined to prove them all wrong. Tested by fire, days turned into weeks, and while Johnny's resolve remained firm, the scrutiny around his relationship with Ashley continued to grow. The whispers had become louder, echoing through every corner of the small town. Yet, amidst the glances and quiet gossip, Johnny and Ashley found solace in each other. They spent late nights discussing their dreams, their ambitions, and their fears. Each shared confession only deepened their bond. But the tension around them was growing more intense. Some of Johnny's oldest friends had stopped coming by the diner. His family grew more distant, refusing to acknowledge his relationship and questioning his choices whenever they saw him. One afternoon, after yet another strained family dinner, Johnny felt the weight of it all pressing down on him. He had become a stranger in his own life, isolated by the very people he had once relied on for support. The breaking point came on a Friday evening, just after the dinner rush had ended. Johnny was wiping down tables, feeling the exhaustion of the day settling into his bones. The bell above the door chimed, and he looked up to see his mother standing there, her face set in a tight, worried expression. She was holding a small envelope in her hand, which she clutched as though it were a lifeline. "Mom," Johnny said, surprised to see her. She rarely came to the diner, and when she did, it was usually for family gatherings or special occasions. Her appearance now, alone and looking troubled, unsettled him. His mother approached him, glancing around as though worried someone might see her. She set the envelope on the table between them and took a deep breath. "Johnny, I came here because I want you to think about what you're doing. About Ashley." Johnny felt his heart sink. "Mom, I love her. I'm not sure what else there is to say." She gave him a pained look, her eyes pleading. "Johnny, you're throwing away your future. You've worked so hard, built something respectable. And Ashley, she's not going to fit in here. She's from a different world, with different dreams. Can't you see that?" Johnny took a steadying breath, trying to control his frustration. "Mom, she's my future. Her dreams don't make her any less deserving of love or respect." His mother sighed, shaking her head. "That's what you don't understand, Johnny. People are talking. Your father and I. This isn't how we raised you. We just want what's best for you." Johnny clenched his fists, feeling a surge of frustration. "I don't need everyone's approval. And I don't need to change who I am to fit some mold. Ashley is an incredible woman. And if people can't see that, then maybe they don't really know me." Without another word, his mother left, leaving Johnny standing alone in the empty diner, his heart pounding with a mixture of anger and hurt. That night, Johnny struggled to fall asleep, his mind racing with the conversation. He knew his family loved him, and he knew their concerns came from a place of care. But he also knew that he couldn't abandon Ashley or ask her to change for the sake of fitting into a world that refused to accept her. The following day, Johnny found himself once again at his family's home, this time determined to make his stance clear. As he walked into the living room, he saw his mother and father seated on the couch, their expressions a mix of worry and expectation. Johnny's sister sat quietly in the corner, watching with a look of sympathy. Before anyone could speak, Johnny took a deep breath and said, "I need you to listen to me. Ashley means the world to me, and I'm not going to walk away from her just because she's different or because she doesn't fit into what you think my life should look like." His father shifted, his face hardening. "Johnny, it's not just about her being different. She's chasing something that's not realistic. Modeling is a fantasy. You're a respected man in this community. This could ruin you." Johnny shook his head, his frustration boiling over. "No, what will ruin me is not standing by the woman I love. Ashley isn't just chasing a fantasy. She has talent, she has drive, and she's willing to work hard for what she wants. That's more than I can say for most people." His mother sighed, her face softening. "We're just trying to protect you, Johnny." Johnny's sister finally spoke up, her voice soft but resolute. "Maybe he doesn't need protecting, Mom. Maybe he needs support." Johnny shot his sister a grateful look. He could see the concern in his parents' eyes, but he also knew that they weren't going to change their minds. He left the house that day feeling both proud and defeated, knowing he'd done what he could but fearing it hadn't been enough. Despite the tension with his family, Johnny and Ashley continued to build their lives together, each holding onto their dreams. Ashley threw herself into auditions, pouring her heart into every opportunity, no matter how small. But the rejection was relentless. Agencies told her she didn't have the right look, or that there wasn't a market for black models in their campaigns. Each rejection was like a small cut, wearing away at her confidence bit by bit. One evening, after yet another disappointing audition, Ashley came home, her shoulders slumped and her eyes dull with exhaustion. She sat down at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. Johnny joined her, placing a comforting hand on her back. "Tough day?" he asked gently. Ashley nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how much more I can take, Johnny. Every door I knock on gets slammed in my face. Maybe everyone's right. Maybe this dream is impossible." Johnny's heart ached for her, but he refused to let her give up. "Ashley, you've come this far because you believed in yourself. Don't let anyone take that away from you. You're talented, you're beautiful, and you have something no one else does. That's worth fighting for." Ashley looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and love. "Thank you, Johnny. I don't know what I'd do without you." They sat together in silence, finding comfort in each other's presence. Despite the challenges, they had become each other's anchor, their love a constant source of strength in a world that seemed determined to tear them apart. As the months passed, Johnny and Ashley began to feel the weight of their struggles bearing down on them. The financial strain was starting to take a toll. The costs of pursuing Ashley's dream, headshots, travel expenses, and audition fees, were adding up, and Johnny was working longer hours to keep up. He poured everything he had into the diner, pushing himself to his limits to make ends meet. One evening, as they sat down to a simple dinner of sandwiches and soup, Ashley hesitated before speaking. "Johnny, maybe I should get a regular job, something steady to help out." Johnny looked at her, his face softening. "Ashley, your dream is important. I don't want you to give up on it just because things are tough right now." She shook her head, her voice filled with quiet determination. "But I don't want to be a burden. I know this hasn't been easy on you, and I hate seeing you work so hard. Maybe it's time to face reality." Johnny reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "Ashley, your dream isn't a burden. We're in this together, remember? I believe in you, and I know that one day all of this hard work will pay off." Ashley smiled, squeezing his hand. "I don't deserve you," she whispered, her voice filled with love. Johnny shook his head, his eyes filled with fierce determination. "No, Ashley, I don't deserve you. And one day, everyone else is going to see what I see." But as he lay awake that night, Johnny couldn't shake the nagging doubt that had crept into his mind. The town's disapproval, the financial strain, the constant rejection, all of it was beginning to wear on him. He had never questioned his commitment to Ashley, but he couldn't ignore the toll their relationship was taking on both of them. The next morning, as he drove to work, Johnny found himself thinking about the future. He had always believed that love was enough to conquer any obstacle, but now he wondered if love alone would be enough to sustain them. He knew that they were both running on empty, their dreams slipping further and further out of reach with each passing day. But when he arrived at the diner and saw Ashley waiting for him, her face lighting up at the sight of him, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had come this far, and he wasn't going to give up now. As the sun began to set that evening, Johnny and Ashley sat together on the porch of their small apartment, watching the colors of the sky fade into twilight. They didn't need to speak. Their love and commitment to each other was stronger than words. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, filled with more challenges than they could imagine. But as long as they had each other, they knew they could face whatever came their way. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready to face it together. And in that quiet moment, as they held each other close, they felt a glimmer of hope that one day their dreams would become a reality. Small victories and new horizons. After months of rejection and doubt, Ashley was beginning to feel that her dream might always remain just that, a dream. But Johnny's unwavering support, his late-night pep talks, and his own tireless work ethic reminded her that they had come too far to give up now. Johnny had poured his soul into the diner, building it from a simple small-town eatery into something special, something that drew people from neighboring towns. Watching him work inspired her, making her realize that if she could channel just a fraction of his determination, maybe, just maybe, she could make her own dreams come true. One bright spring afternoon, Ashley's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She hesitated, bracing herself for another rejection. But when she answered, her heart skipped a beat. It was Sarah, a local talent scout she had met at one of her recent auditions. Sarah's voice was enthusiastic, and Ashley could hear the excitement bubbling through the line. "Ashley, I've been thinking about you for a project that just came up," Sarah began. "It's a small ad campaign for a new boutique in the area, and I think you'd be a perfect fit." Ashley's breath caught in her throat. "Are you serious?" I'd love to. When do we start?" "Can you be at the studio next Thursday?" Sarah asked, her tone businesslike but friendly. "The shoot is for their summer collection. It's mostly casual wear, showcasing the brand's new line of sundresses. It's not high fashion, but it's a great start." Ashley's heart raced with a mix of excitement and nerves. It wasn't a major gig, but it was real, and it was happening. "I'll be there," she replied, barely able to contain her enthusiasm. She hung up the phone, staring at it in disbelief, and let out a joyful laugh. Johnny came into the room, a concerned look on his face. "Is everything okay?" he asked, watching her carefully. Ashley turned to him, her face glowing with excitement. "Johnny, I got a job. A real modeling job. I'm going to be part of an ad campaign." Johnny's face broke into a wide grin, and he pulled her into a tight embrace, lifting her off her feet. "I knew it," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with pride. "I knew you could do it." As the news of Ashley's first modeling job spread through their small circle, the reactions were mixed. Some friends congratulated her genuinely, while others gave her polite but distant smiles, their doubts still lingering. But Johnny and Ashley didn't care. This was the first real step toward Ashley's dream, and they intended to savor every moment of it. The day of the shoot arrived, and Ashley was a bundle of nerves. She had spent the previous evening practicing her poses in front of a mirror, flipping through magazines and studying models' expressions. She wanted everything to be perfect. Johnny drove her to the studio, his hand on hers the entire way, offering steady reassurances. When they arrived, the studio was buzzing with activity. Photographers adjusted their lighting equipment, stylists prepared outfits, and makeup artists set up their stations. Ashley felt a surge of excitement and anxiety. This was her first time being part of something so professional, so real. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she was here for a reason. The boutique owner, a woman named Linda with a warm smile and an eye for detail, greeted her with a firm handshake. "Ashley, it's so great to finally meet you. I've heard wonderful things," she said, her tone filled with genuine warmth. "Let's get you into the first outfit." As Ashley slipped into a soft, flowing sundress, the makeup artist touched up her face, adding a natural, sun-kissed glow. She felt like she was stepping into a different world, a world she had only ever dreamed of. When the photographer directed her to the set, she took another deep breath, focusing on Johnny's words from the night before. "You're going to shine, Ashley. Just be yourself." The shoot began, and with each click of the camera, Ashley grew more comfortable. She found herself slipping into the poses naturally, feeling a confidence she hadn't known she possessed. The crew offered her encouragement, complimenting her posture and expressions. Linda watched from the sidelines, nodding approvingly. By the time they wrapped up, Ashley's nerves had melted away, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and pride. As she changed back into her clothes, Linda approached her, a gleam of excitement in her eyes. "Ashley, you were fantastic," she said. "I'd love to work with you again. We're planning another shoot for the fall line, and I think you'd be a perfect fit." Ashley's eyes widened, her heart racing with excitement. "I'd love that," she replied, feeling the first spark of hope reigniting within her. When she left the studio, Johnny was waiting outside, his face breaking into a grin the moment he saw her. "How did it go?" he asked, taking her hand in his. "It was amazing, Johnny. They liked me. They really liked me. And they want me back for another shoot in a few months." Johnny's face lit up, and he pulled her into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you, Ashley. This is just the beginning." As they drove home, Ashley couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in a long time, she felt like her dream was within reach. The campaign photos were released a few weeks later, and Ashley's face appeared in store windows and local magazines. She couldn't believe it. The little girl who had once dreamed of seeing someone like her in magazines was now part of an ad campaign herself. Friends, neighbors, and even a few of the doubters from the diner sent her messages of congratulations, some filled with genuine admiration, others tinged with surprise. But the support that meant the most to her came from the young women in town, who approached her with awe in their eyes. "You're a model," one teenage girl whispered, staring at Ashley with wide eyes. "I want to be a model too someday. Do you think I could?" Ashley's heart swelled with emotion as she looked at the girl, seeing a reflection of her own young, hopeful self. "If it's what you truly want, then absolutely," she replied, offering a reassuring smile. "Believe in yourself, even when no one else does." One evening, as she and Johnny sat on their porch, basking in the glow of her small but meaningful success, Ashley felt a newfound sense of hope. She knew that her journey was far from over, that the road ahead would still be filled with obstacles and doubt. But now she also knew that she could overcome them. As they watched the sunset, Johnny took her hand, his voice filled with quiet determination. "Ashley, I've been thinking about something. What if we started looking beyond this town? There's only so much opportunity here, but in a big city, you'd have a better chance of getting noticed." Ashley looked at him, her heart racing. The thought of leaving their small town, of venturing into a world that felt vast and overwhelming, filled her with both excitement and fear. But she knew Johnny was right. If she wanted to make her dream a reality, she would have to take risks, big ones. "Do you really think we could do it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Johnny nodded, his gaze steady. "I know we can. We'll go together. We'll make it work." The decision to move was not an easy one, and it was met with mixed reactions. Johnny's family was shocked, expressing concerns about the challenges of city life and the risks involved in leaving behind a stable business. The town, too, had its share of opinions, with some dismissing their move as a foolish gamble. But Johnny and Ashley held firm, their resolve unshaken. They spent the next few months preparing for the move, saving every penny, and making arrangements to keep the diner running in their absence. Johnny trained Marge to manage the day-to-day operations, knowing he was leaving his beloved diner in good hands. On the morning of their departure, they stood outside their apartment, looking out at the familiar streets and the small diner where their journey had begun. Johnny's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. He knew he was leaving behind the only home he had ever known, but he also knew that he was stepping into a future filled with possibility. As they loaded the last of their belongings into the car, Marge approached them, her eyes filled with emotion. She hugged Johnny tightly, her voice cracking as she spoke. "You go make us proud, Johnny. You and Ashley deserve all the happiness in the world." Johnny hugged her back, his own voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Marge, for everything." With a final wave to their friends and neighbors, Johnny and Ashley climbed into the car and set off, the road stretching out before them like a promise. As they drove away from the only life they had ever known, they felt a mixture of fear and excitement, their hearts pounding with anticipation. They were leaving behind their small town, but they carried with them the love, support, and dreams that had brought them together. And as they looked toward the horizon, they knew that they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The city of dreams and sacrifices. The city greeted Johnny and Ashley with a whirlwind of lights, sounds, and a sense of possibility that was both exhilarating and overwhelming. As they wove through the crowded streets, skyscrapers towering above them, Ashley felt a surge of excitement unlike anything she had ever known. This was where dreams came true, where fortunes were made and destinies were reshaped. Their first apartment was a far cry from the familiar comfort of their small-town home. It was cramped, barely enough space for their modest belongings, and the walls were thin enough to hear their neighbors arguing or laughing at all hours. But as they unpacked, turning the tiny space into their own, Johnny looked around with a smile and said, "It's not much, but it's ours. Just the beginning." They spent the next few days exploring their new world, Ashley attending open calls and auditions, while Johnny scouted out restaurant spaces in the hopes of opening a new branch of his diner. The city was relentless, its pace unforgiving, and they soon realized that they would have to work harder than they ever had before just to keep up. But together, they were ready to face whatever came their way. One morning, as Ashley scanned her calendar, her heart skipped a beat. She had landed an interview with one of the top agencies in the city. This was the opportunity she had dreamed of, the chance to make a name for herself, to prove that she belonged in the world of modeling. "Johnny," she called out, unable to keep the excitement out of her voice. "I have an interview with New Visage Agency tomorrow. They're one of the biggest agencies here." Johnny's face lit up with pride. He wrapped her in a hug, his voice filled with unwavering confidence. "You're going to knock their socks off, Ashley. I just know it." The next day, Ashley walked into the sleek, modern office of New Visage Agency. The space was filled with glamorous people, all dressed impeccably, their conversations hushed and serious. She felt a pang of self-doubt, but pushed it aside, reminding herself of Johnny's words. She had come too far to back down now. The interview was a blur of questions about her experience, her goals, and her vision for her career. The director, a tall woman with an air of authority, looked at Ashley critically, her eyes scanning her with a professional detachment. "So," the director said, folding her hands on the desk, "you're new to the industry, no major campaigns, no international experience. What makes you think you're ready for New York?" Ashley took a steadying breath, her voice filled with quiet conviction. "I may be new, but I'm willing to work harder than anyone else. I know I have what it takes, and I believe that if you give me a chance, I can prove it." The director raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "It's not just about hard work, Ashley. This industry is about connections, about fitting into a certain mold. And to be honest, you don't exactly have the look we're after right now." The words stung, but Ashley held her head high, refusing to let the disappointment show. She thanked the director politely and left the office, her heart heavy with the familiar ache of rejection. When she returned home, Johnny was waiting for her, his face filled with hope. But one look at her expression told him everything he needed to know. "They said I don't have the right look," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Johnny took her hands, his gaze steady. "Ashley, they don't see what I see. You have something no one else has, a spirit, a resilience that can't be taught. Don't let them take that away from you." Ashley managed a small smile, grateful for his unwavering support. "Thank you, Johnny. I don't know what I'd do without you." They held each other for a long moment, finding comfort in their shared struggle. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, filled with more obstacles than they could imagine. But they also knew that they were stronger together, that their love could carry them through even the darkest moments. As the weeks turned into months, Ashley and Johnny settled into the rhythm of city life, each pursuing their dreams with a fierce determination. Johnny found work at a local diner, a small place tucked away on a quiet street. It wasn't his own, but he threw himself into the job, learning the city's culinary preferences, picking up tips on trends, and refining his skills. He kept a notebook filled with ideas for his own restaurant, his mind buzzing with the possibilities that the city offered. Ashley, meanwhile, continued attending casting calls and auditions, her days a blur of photo shoots, interviews, and endless waits in crowded rooms filled with other hopefuls. She faced rejection after rejection, each one a reminder of how competitive the industry was. But every time she felt like giving up, she thought of Johnny and his quiet faith in her. She couldn't bear the thought of letting him down. One rainy afternoon, as she was preparing to leave for yet another audition, her phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, the talent scout who had given her her first break. The message was short, but filled with promise. "Call me when you get this. I have something exciting for you." Ashley's heart raced as she dialed Sarah's number. The phone barely rang once before Sarah picked up, her voice filled with excitement. "Ashley, I've been trying to get a hold of you. There's a new skincare brand launching soon, and they're looking for fresh faces. It's not high fashion, but it's a well-paying campaign with a reputable team. I think you'd be a great fit." Ashley could barely contain her excitement. "Yes, I'd love to. When do we start?" Sarah laughed, clearly pleased. "You're in luck. The casting is tomorrow morning. I'll text you the details." When she hung up, Ashley could hardly believe it. She had another opportunity, another chance to prove herself. She looked at Johnny, her face glowing with excitement. "Johnny, I got another job." Johnny grinned, pulling her into a tight hug. "I told you, Ashley. I told you that you'd make it. This is just the beginning." The campaign was a success. Ashley's face appeared on billboards across the city, her radiant smile a testament to the countless hours she had spent working toward her dream. For the first time, she began to feel like she belonged, like she was truly part of the industry. As her career began to gain traction, offers started to come in. Smaller jobs at first, but each one a step closer to her ultimate goal. She found herself juggling photo shoots, castings, and events, her schedule packed with opportunities that she had once only dreamed of. But the demands of her career began to take a toll on her relationship with Johnny. Johnny, too, was making strides in his own journey. He had saved enough money to rent a small space in the heart of the city, a modest restaurant where he could showcase his culinary skills. He spent long hours renovating the place, turning it into a cozy, welcoming spot that reminded him of his diner back home. But as they both poured themselves into their work, they found less and less time for each other. Their evenings, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, became quiet, each of them exhausted from the demands of their day. The city, with all its promise, was beginning to wear on them, testing the strength of their love and commitment. One evening, as Ashley returned home after a long day of photoshoots, she found Johnny waiting for her, his face drawn with worry. He had been trying to reach her all day, but she had been too busy to check her messages. "Ashley," he began, his voice tense, "we need to talk." She sat down beside him, her heart sinking. She could feel the distance that had grown between them, the unspoken strain that had crept into their lives. "I feel like I'm losing you," Johnny said quietly, his voice filled with pain. "We came here to chase our dreams, but somewhere along the way, I feel like we've lost each other." Ashley's eyes filled with tears, and she took his hand, her voice trembling. "Johnny, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I've just been so focused on my career, on proving to everyone that I belong here." Johnny squeezed her hand, his gaze softening. "I know, Ashley, and I'm so proud of you. But I miss us. I miss the late-night talks, the laughter, the quiet moments. I don't want to lose what we have." They sat in silence, each of them feeling the weight of their choices, the sacrifices they had made for their dreams. They knew that the city had tested them in ways they hadn't anticipated, pushing them to their limits and revealing the fragility of even the strongest love. But as they held each other, they realized that their love was worth fighting for. They had come too far, faced too many challenges, to let it slip away. "Let's make a promise," Ashley whispered, her voice filled with determination. "No matter how busy we get, no matter how demanding our careers become, we'll make time for each other. We'll find a way to keep our love strong." Johnny nodded, his heart swelling with renewed hope. "I promise, Ashley. We'll make this work. Together." From that moment on, they made a conscious effort to nurture their relationship. They set aside time each week for quiet dinners, walks through the city, and long talks that reminded them of why they had come here in the first place. Their love became a sanctuary, a refuge from the demands of the city and the pressures of their careers. And as they continued to chase their dreams, they found that their love was not just a source of strength, but a guiding light, illuminating the path ahead and reminding them that, no matter where life took them, they would always have each other. They were no longer just two dreamers from a small town. They were a team, bound by a love that had been tested by fire and come out stronger than ever. And as they looked toward the future, they knew that, together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Dreams fulfilled and a legacy born. The years in the city had transformed Johnny and Ashley. Through countless rejections, tireless work, and unwavering faith in each other, they had carved out a place for themselves in a world that had once seemed too big to conquer. Their love, once tested by fire, had become an anchor, keeping them steady as they pursued their ambitions. Ashley's career had taken off. Her perseverance and unique beauty had finally caught the attention of a renowned international designer, who cast her in a major runway show in Paris. She walked down the runway with a grace and confidence that captivated the audience, her presence radiating strength. The show became a career-defining moment. And from then on, doors that had once been closed flung wide open. Contracts, endorsements, and magazine covers poured in, and she quickly became a sought-after face in the industry. Meanwhile, Johnny's dream of owning a successful restaurant in the city had become a reality. The cozy eatery he had once poured his soul into had grown, expanding to 2 more locations across town. Johnny's Kitchen became a beloved local staple, known not just for its food, but for the sense of warmth and hospitality that Johnny brought to each location. People came not only for the flavors he had perfected over the years, but also for the community he fostered, a place where everyone was welcome, no matter who they were. Despite their success, Johnny and Ashley remained humble, rooted in the journey that had brought them here. They often spent quiet evenings reflecting on how far they had come, marveling at the life they had built together. One evening, As they sat on the terrace of their apartment, overlooking the city that had once felt so intimidating, Johnny looked at Ashley, his eyes filled with pride and love. "You've come a long way, Ash," he said softly, taking her hand. "I always knew you could do it, but seeing you here, living your dream, it's even more amazing than I imagined." Ashley smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you, Johnny. There were so many times I wanted to give up, but you always believed in me. You reminded me why I started, even when I forgot." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the lights of the city twinkle like stars. But even as they basked in the glow of their achievements, a new idea began to take root in Ashley's heart, something that had been quietly growing over the years, inspired by the young models she had met, many of whom were facing the same struggles she once had. "Johnny," she said, breaking the silence, "I've been thinking. Now that I found my place in this industry, I want to help others find theirs. I want to open a modeling school, a place where young girls, no matter their background, can come to learn, to be mentored, and to know that they're beautiful just as they are." Johnny looked at her, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "That's an incredible idea, Ash. You'd be giving them the support you always wished you had. You'd be changing lives." Ashley's face lit up, her mind racing with possibilities. "I remember what it felt like, Johnny, walking into casting calls and being told I didn't have the right look, the right background. I want to change that. I want to show these girls that they're enough, that their dreams are valid." Johnny squeezed her hand, a proud smile on his face. "Then let's do it. We'll build this school together." Over the next few months, Ashley poured her heart into planning the school. She wanted it to be more than just a place to learn about modeling. She wanted it to be a haven, a community, a place where young people could find confidence and self-worth. She worked closely with Johnny to bring her vision to life, and together, they found a beautiful space, a renovated building with high ceilings, bright open rooms, and large windows that filled the space with natural light. On the day of the grand opening, a crowd gathered outside the school. Young girls with wide eyes and hopeful smiles stood with their families, each one eager to be part of something special. As Ashley cut the ribbon, she looked out at the crowd, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. "Welcome to the Jones School of Modeling," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "This place isn't just about teaching you how to walk a runway or pose for a camera. It's about teaching you to believe in yourself, to find strength in your uniqueness, and to know that you are beautiful just as you are. Each of you has something special to offer, and I can't wait to help you discover it." The crowd erupted in applause, and Ashley felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She looked over at Johnny, who was watching her with tears in his eyes, and she knew that this was just as much his dream as it was hers. He had been her support, her rock, her inspiration, and now, together, they were creating a legacy. As the school welcomed its first class of students, Ashley threw herself into mentoring, sharing not only the technical skills of modeling, but also the life lessons she had learned on her journey. She taught them about resilience, about the importance of self-love, and about the power of perseverance. Her students looked up to her, finding in her a role model who had walked the path they hoped to follow. Meanwhile, Johnny's restaurant business continued to thrive. With the success of his city locations, he had been able to open a new branch in their hometown, bringing his dream full circle. The townspeople, who had once doubted his choices, now welcomed him back with open arms, their admiration evident as they dined at his restaurant and marveled at how he had turned his passion into something so successful. One afternoon, as Johnny was overseeing the opening of the new location, a familiar face walked through the door. It was his old friend Mike, the same friend who had once questioned his relationship with Ashley. Mike looked around the bustling restaurant, a look of awe on his face. "Johnny," he began, his voice filled with genuine admiration, "I've watched you build this from the ground up. I'm sorry I didn't see it before, but you were right. You and Ashley, you both proved us all wrong." Johnny smiled, his expression filled with understanding. "Thanks, Mike. It means a lot to hear that." As they shook hands, Johnny felt a sense of closure, a feeling that he had finally come full circle. He had proven not only to the town but also to himself that dreams were worth fighting for, and that with love and resilience, anything was possible. Years passed, and Johnny and Ashley continued to build their legacy. The Jones School of Modeling became a renowned institution, known for its commitment to diversity, self-empowerment, and the nurturing of young talent. Models who graduated from the school went on to grace the covers of magazines, walk international runways, and become advocates for change within the industry. Ashley became a beloved figure in the modeling world, not just for her beauty, but for her heart, her courage, and her dedication to empowering others. She continued to model, but her true passion lay in teaching and mentoring, in helping others find their voice and their place in the world. Johnny's restaurant empire flourished, each location embodying the warmth and authenticity that had made his first diner a beloved spot. His restaurants became community hubs, places where people gathered to celebrate, to connect, and to share in the joy of good food and good company. He remained as involved as ever, greeting customers by name and making each location feel like a home away from home. One evening, as Johnny and Ashley sat on the porch of their dream home, an elegant yet cozy house with views of the city lights and the rolling hills beyond, they reflected on their journey, on the love that had carried them through every challenge. "Can you believe it, Johnny?" Ashley murmured, leaning her head against his shoulder. "All those years of struggling, of doubting ourselves. And now, here we are. We made it." Johnny wrapped an arm around her, his voice filled with quiet pride. "We did, Ash, and we did it together. Through every obstacle, every setback, we never let go of each other. I wouldn't have it any other way." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars twinkle in the sky, each one a reminder of the dreams they had once reached for. Their journey had not been easy, but they knew that the struggles, the sacrifices, and the resilience they had shown had only strengthened their bond. As they held each other, they felt a sense of peace, a deep contentment that went beyond success or recognition. They had built a life filled with love, purpose, and meaning, a life that would inspire others to believe in themselves, to chase their dreams, and to never give up. Their love had not only carried them to new heights, it had left an indelible mark on the world, a legacy that would live on in the lives they had touched, the dreams they had nurtured, and the hearts they had inspired. And as they watched the city lights twinkle below, Johnny and Ashley knew that they had not only built a life together, they had built a legacy, one that would shine as brightly as the stars above. This concludes the story of Johnny and Ashley. Their journey from a small town filled with doubts to the fulfillment of their dreams became a testament to love, resilience, and the power of unwavering faith in each other.